The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side. Hello, America. Hello, world. Here we are. This week, President Trump did something that a lot of people in Washington didn't expect. He canceled a scheduled signing ceremony for a bipartisan housing bill, a bill that had been moving through Congress and was supposed to be signed into law, but he pulled the plug on the event just hours before it was supposed to happen. Instead, he made it clear that he's not going to sign the housing legislation until Congress first passes the most important piece of legislation that has seen the halls of Congress in generations. And he wants them to pass the Save America Act. He called the Save America Act a national emergency, and he was right to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to explain all of it, give you behind-the-scenes analysis about what this means, and tell you exactly what to expect. The right side is now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. You ready? Welcome to the show. Doug Billings here. You're on the right side. I want to walk you through exactly what happened in Washington this week. President Trump had a meeting. He made a move. And I want to tell you why it actually matters way more than most of the headlines are willing to explain to you. We had this thing called the housing bill, and it was being presented as a reasonable bipartisan effort to increase housing supply and to help bring down costs for American families. Okay, now on the surface, that sounds like something most people could support. Housing prices, as most of you know, have been a real burden for millions of Americans, especially for younger families who are trying to buy their first home. So when a bill comes along that claims to address that problem, it's easy to see why it gained some traction. But President Trump looked at the bigger picture and he made a different calculation. He decided that no matter how well intended the housing bill might be, it was not the most important thing that needed to get done right now at this moment. Trump put election integrity first, as he should, as it should be, folks. The Save America Act is legislation, as most of you know, again, that is focused on strengthening the rules around federal elections. Now, I'm not pretending that you don't know, but just in case you're from Raytown, Missouri, and you've not heard about any of this, it includes requirements for voter identification, proof of citizenship in order to vote, and so forth. There are basic safeguards that this bill has that most countries around the world have already had in place for decades or since they were founded. They're not extreme, they're common sense. President Trump has been pushing for this bill because he believes, and many Americans agree, that secure elections are the foundation of everything else in our system. If the rules around who gets to vote and how those votes are verified are weak or inconsistent, then every other policy decision becomes vulnerable over time. You take any issue that you personally care about, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's the right to life, Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, maybe it's free speech, whatever it might be, whatever issue is your most passionate issue, it pales in comparison about the importance of election integrity. Because without election integrity, you won't be able to pass and verify and be certain that your passionate cause, whether it's right to life, Second Amendment, or whatever, is voted for and passes with any verifiable means. Everything else becomes second, okay? So think about it this way. You can pass good laws on housing, on taxes, border security, anything else, okay? But if the people making those decisions are being elected under rules that don't fully protect the integrity of the vote, then the long-term direction of the country can still be steered in ways that doesn't reflect the will of the American people. That's why Trump called it a national emergency, and he was right to do so. Trump sees elections as the non-negotiable starting point. By canceling the housing bill signing, President Trump was using the leverage that he had. Now, in Washington, D.C., leverage is one of the few tools that a president has to move priorities when Congress is slow or resistant. Trump essentially said, we're not moving forward on this until we handle the more foundational issue first. And folks, this isn't anything unusual in politics. Presidents from both parties have used similar tactics when they believed that something more important was at stake. What made this move stand out is that he was willing to delay something that had been bipartisan and had support and had positive media coverage in order to force action on his election integrity issue. Now, that brings us to an important point. Much of the media and many of the Washington elected class were ready to move forward with this housing bill and were incredibly enthusiastic. They were excited about this thing. Folks, when you see that kind of unified enthusiasm from the media for any particular piece of legislation, stop and think for a minute, because it's often worth asking what else might be getting less attention as a result of the media's attention on any particular issue. In this case, the Save America Act was being treated as secondary. President Trump refused to accept that ordering of priorities. All right? Public opinion on this issue is actually very clear. Polling has consistently shown that large majorities of Americans, oftentimes up to 80% or higher, support requiring voter ID and proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. This is not a fringe position. This is a mainstream, common sense view held by people across party lines who just believe that elections should be secure and that only citizens should decide who represents them. Not crazy at all, is it? The resistance to these basic measures that we see, it's never really been about preventing any fraud in honest policy debate. It's not about that. It's been about preserving certain structural advantages that have just developed over time in D.C. So when the rules are loose, it becomes easier for organized groups like the radical left Commune Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, to influence the outcomes in ways that don't require broad public support. By putting the SAVE Act, first, President Trump is drawing a line in the sand. He's saying that we're not going to keep building new policies on top of a foundation that remains vulnerable. Look, housing is important, but if we don't, so are a multitude of other issues. But if we don't have confidence that the people writing those housing policies or other policies were fairly elected under secure rules, then we're constantly fighting symptoms instead of addressing the root cause. So this move from Trump also sends a message about how he intends to govern. He's willing to use the tools that are available to him, including the power to sign or not to sign legislation, to force Congress to deal with issues that he believes are critical to the long-term health of the country. And that kind of priority setting is exactly what many people elected him to do. It's the thinking of a businessman versus a politician. Now, there's something else worth noting here. This decision didn't come out of left field, didn't come out of nowhere. It fits right into a larger pattern of President Trump treating election integrity as one of the central issues of his administration. He's been consistent on this point for years. He believes that if you lose control of the rules around voting, you eventually lose control over the direction of the country itself. And he's not willing to let that happen on his watch. For everyday Americans watching this, the message is pretty straightforward. Secure elections are not a partisan luxury. They're the basic requirement for self-government. When a president is willing to delay other priorities in order to protect that foundation, it shows that he understands what actually holds a republic together over the long period of time. So the housing bill can still be negotiated. It can still be improved. There's no reason that it has to be abandoned, but it shouldn't move forward while the more important issue of election integrity is left sitting on the sidelines. That's the calculation that President Trump made. And it's a calculation that makes sense when you look at the long-term stakes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of leadership that actually changes trajectories instead of just managing problems. Doesn't just kick the can down the road. It's not flashy. It's not always popular in the moment with people who want quick wins, but it's the kind of thinking that projects the country forward. And it protects us and the republic for the people who we love and all of the people who come after us. So if we want to have real influence over housing policy or immigration policy, education policy, or anything else 5 or 10 years from now, we have to make sure that the people, those decisions, who are making those decisions are being chosen through elections that everyone can trust. That's what the Save America Act is ultimately all about. And that's why President Trump was willing to use the leverage that he had to put that Save America Act first legislation first, where it belongs. So this is a test of priorities. And the choice that he made this week was clear. Protect the foundation before you build on top of it. I mean, it's appropriate coming from a builder like Trump, right? That's the right order on the right side. And it's the order that we should expect after and from a leader who takes the long-term survival of this republic very seriously. I'd like you to consider, ladies and gentlemen, liking, sharing, follow me, share the comment, like it, the program, subscribe wherever you're watching, because it helps ignite the algorithm and therefore it gets the message in front of more people. This is how we save the republic. This is how we inform and educate each other. A little simple share. And also, please prayerfully consider heading over to my website, dougbillings.us. Prayerfully consider supporting the show over there. Set up a monthly $5 a month contribution. If you can afford more, great. But I never charge anybody to watch the program. I depend on your support to help me produce it. So that's where we stand today, ladies and gentlemen. That is where Trump stands, and we're in this thing together. I want you to believe it. We always have been. I'm honored that you're here on the right side with me. It's all for the republic. Believe it. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.